Dan Lewis, who is the Senior Advisor Infrastructure at the IOD, Institute of Directors, strong background in finance, expert in energy and utilities as well as aspects of transport. And is the free market the right solution for rail, or do passengers enjoy heavily subsidised fares and services? You're really making a response to what you've heard in terms of how best to move towards the future. And what do you think?
Sure. Well, look, the long and short of it is I'm quite sure that we can all agree that increasing transport connectivity leads to greater economic opportunities. Where I think we have a bifurcation of views is, do you want to do this by increasing metropolitan agglomeration, which is really things like HS2, but more things like London Overground, which has been very successful, or do you want to do it through intercity agglomeration? I think you actually have to ask this question a lot, because arguably one of the biggest problems still facing the country for some time is that there is not enough money. Even if we don't have a recession until 2029, that's when we get back to national debt being back to sort of 40% of GDP. But I think we're statistically overdue for another recession. There'll probably be another one before then as well. So my take on this is I don't doubt that if you build a fast train up to Manchester or Liverpool, you know, it wouldn't be pleasant and agreeable. But every time I go there, I don't think, I wish I could get there 15, 20 minutes faster. I find myself thinking, I wish the Wi-Fi didn't drop in and out, because I'm working on the train, you know, and I think that there are always going to be higher returns in moving more people more quickly within a city and increasing more economic opportunities that way. And that's why we're actually big supporters of the Northern Powerhouse. And I think Crossrail, obviously, it goes a little bit further as you go to Reading. And we're open-minded about Crossrail too. You're
open-minded. Northern Powerhouse rather than this way. It doesn't actually matter if you shave 15 minutes off your journey, or an hour off your journey even.
We don't see it as an either-or. You actually need both. And I think one of the things we've really seen very strongly is how much the northern cities themselves are now arguing for high speed too. And one has to, I think, assume that they're doing that because they can see the real value of having city-to-city connections, as well as the investment in their cities themselves. And on the point about journey times, I think it's not so much about whether you can work on trains and so on, but actually it changes the whole way that people will think about travel. If you can go to Manchester sort of, you know, easily there and back in a day, if you can do it in just over an hour, the sort of opportunities that it creates for businesses are transformed.
So it's there and back from London in a day.
Well, you can get to, well, it would make Manchester more like the journey, well, faster than the journey to Birmingham now. It's about, you know, the time of the journey to Brighton. Your sort of concept of doing business and the willingness to move around will be transformed once you can do that in half a day. Actually, you could do a return trip in half a day.
It doesn't help Scotland to Manchester, which, as I know to my horror, is very slow and difficult. Let's take a point of your response to this.
Well, I'm completely with Alison on the viewpoint that you do need faster intercity journey times, but I think that's something that's going to be rolled out across the entire country, not just linking everywhere to London fast, or even everywhere to Birmingham fast, but really between all our primary cities of the UK. And this is what we're talking about in High Speed UK, getting 40% journey times universally across the entire network, and Manchester to Edinburgh and Glasgow being a primary example of that.
I think sort of one step at a time, I suppose, is what I would say to that. I think
time takes us to 2060.
Well, you know, these are big investments, and one has to be realistic. And we're focusing, as I said in the presentation, 8 of our 10 major cities are connected by high speed too. So we're focusing initially,
universally. And that's what you've got to be going for, Alison. You've got to have this vision that every major city within your original scope of interest, which is London to Liverpool, Manchester, Leeds and Sheffield, this connectivity exists across the north, across the Midlands and north-south as well. And HS2 isn't going to do that.
I think one of the changes I think we've seen in the whole debate around HS2 is actually more of a debate around HS2 as integrated as part of the railway, High Speed 2 can't do all of this on its own. It's actually about the connections it's going to make with the existing railway. And the work that we're linked into the work that Transport for the North is doing, working very closely with Network Rail to make sure that the two railways are connected so that you do spread the benefits more widely.
Is there a way that private enterprise can play a role in that connectivity, though?
Well, yes. I mean, I have a deep concern in general about the railways. Is that I think, particularly with Network Rail, what we're seeing is a sort of debt-funded, tax-fueled expansion. It's almost like Greece on rails, you might say. And it's not a sustainable business model. Now, you know, I know a Chinese rail engineer can look at Birmingham and see a suburb of London, but then what you're actually going to do, and I don't doubt for a moment the good intentions of everyone who works for HS2, but what you're actually going to do is reinforce London as the central nodal point. And what is the outcome of that? You're actually going to raise land values in places like Birmingham. And this is, after all, one of the great assets of some of these other parts of the country is the price of property is quite a bit lower. And so your money does go a bit further. So I think it's not necessarily a great thing that you start raising land values in other parts of the country.
Just coming back to the point of view of someone who's actually trying to make the whole London connectivity better, do you see, though, more an overall philosophical problem of reinforcing London?
I was interested in what Alison had to say about the sort of two key themes of connectivity and capacity, because actually those are very much the themes of Crossrail 1 and indeed would be of Crossrail 2 as well. And part of the rationale and the business case for Crossrail is actually bringing more people within range of the prosperity of the capital. So it's not just to serve the existing commuter traffic in and out of London, it's actually expanding that footprint to enable more people outside the capital who may not be able to afford to live in central London or the existing suburbs, to benefit from the economic activity in London. Whether I feel comfortable with that or not, that's the way it is.
Well, I think we need this connectivity across the north just as much as within London, and there is a danger that the major projects are concentrated in London as it is. HS2, as it currently stands, is a London-centric funnel, and until you get a balanced amount of connectivity across the north. Now, Northern Powerhouse is brilliant, and what it's actually done is it's set up a specification for journey times across all the northern cities, something HS2 never did. And one of our major boasts is that we meet every single one of the Northern Powerhouse's journey time specifications between Liverpool, Manchester, Sheffield, Leeds and Newcastle. And also we get direct connections into Manchester Airport from all these cities, as Northern Powerhouse has asked for. So in a sense, I want to declare game over. We've done this already, and I'm calling on basically all of the transport industry to engage with High Speed UK, because we've actually got the solutions already sorted. These routes we've got are mapped out at 1 to 25,000 scale, they're timetabled, so we're absolutely confident it works. Unfortunately, HS2 and HS3 and the official proposals are dominating the debate, and nobody is actually looking at a real railway engineered alternative.
To Alison Munro, I would say I agree with most of what you said, except for your own words. And you said the next phase of high-speed rail must be the best strategic solution. And it isn't. And we've tested that. And we've tested that by measuring it against a basket of 528 journeys, real journeys, and compared them with today. Did you know, and if you didn't, I wonder why you didn't, that HS2 will make 171 of the 528 journeys worse in the future than they are today, either because the train frequency is reduced or because there are additional stops slowing the trains down. And that data is taken from Table 23 on page 91 of the KPMG report on regional development.
Which we actually have here.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's 1 in 5 journeys. Just under 1 in 6 journeys will be slower.
I think there has been a lot of debate about what is the right solution for high speed 2. I think our view is, and I think we've had 4 Secretary of States now who've endorsed the view. We've had a big consultation that actually the answer that we have developed, the Y-shaped network, is actually the right strategic solution. So I would say it is the right strategic solution. It's been based on a lot of work. But I think the debate has actually moved on a bit from, have we got the right concept now? It's actually moved on to how do we actually deliver it now, and how do we make the most of the benefits that can flow from it.
The question is, why are you slowing down 171 of the journeys? You've got no answer to it.
Hang on. If we are in the Y shape and that's going to happen, so therefore, what we should talk about then, is it possible within what you're doing to make sure these journeys aren't slower?
Yeah, yes, I mean, we will continue to work, and that's why we're working very closely with Network Rail, and we're working very closely with the cities to make sure that the benefits are the most that they can possibly be.
Now, Colin, we haven't got time for your whole slide presentation, but do give us an outline, please.
Right. The outline is that we want to build a different shape system. We don't want to cause the environmental damage in the Chilterns, the huge unprecedented lengths of tunnelling that are going to still damage that area and give us a two-track railway, which actually from London to all areas of the north, which actually isn't sufficient to bring high-speed services to all the stakeholder communities of the existing intercity network. We want to build a line up the M1 corridor, which, despite what HS2 have said about it, is perfectly feasible. All our route planning proves that. We want to re-examine all of the decisions that HS2 have taken, because these are vastly expensive decisions. We estimate, and it's on HS2's estimates as well, £60 billion at least to deliver HS2 and HS3. If you build it up sensible corridors, which requiring actually less route miles to cover the entire country, and at the same time connect more communities, achieve that ideal of hourly intercity trains between all our major communities and do it in a single planned network, we could do it so much better. We estimate £40 billion rather than £60 billion. Now, you might say HS2 is a done deal, but when there's that amount of public money at stake, and when some of the decision-making, which actually got us to HS2, the fact that no choice was given, we just had, politicians have been given HS2 or absolutely nothing else. Politicians and local leaders are always going to choose the option that's put in front of them as a new railway development. We need the full connectivity across the country, a planned network, and this is the intellectual black hole of HS2, effectively. They've designed it as a high-speed line, and then they've tried to retrofit connectivity on top of it. They haven't actually done it as one integrated design effort.
You want to add to that, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, look, the big picture for me is that with all these big projects, mega projects, and there's a wonderful turn of phrase by Professor Bernd Fleibergerg, who wrote a book about this, mega projects, and he says there's an iron rule to mega projects. They're always over budget, over deadline every single time. And what worries me is that HS2 really is going to take quite a long time to build. There's a huge opportunity cost to the capital. And you know, by the time it's built, we're going to have much faster broadband network speeds around the country. Not to mention, you know, probably the start of some sort of self-driving cars. So, you know, if I was working in the rail industry and I wasn't in HS2, I would probably be sort of campaigning against it.
Okay, yeah.
Sorry, I can't let you get away with that one. Mega projects are not
I was just about to say Crossrail.
And late.
Thank you.
You can have a debate about the Olympics, but Crossrail won't be over budget or late.
Last question here.
Andrew Sharp from the International Air Rail Organisation. Mr Sexton, in the Runways UK conference here yesterday, the MD of London City Airport talked about the idea of a station at Silvertown to serve his airport. Is that likely to happen, and if so, when? And Kirsty, you might like to know from my sector of the industry, the airport railway industry, that over 40% of Heathrow Express train drivers are female, and the managing directors of the airport railways in Toronto, Oslo, Milan and Kuala Lumpur are also female. Thank you.
Yeah.
Right, well, the answer to a station at Silvertown is no. And I mentioned in my talk about governance and requirements creep and all the other things. I spent a long time of my career in defence, and most defence projects go over budget because people change their minds about what they want halfway through. I think, actually, credit to our board and our sponsor board, we haven't changed our mind. So Crossrail 1 will not deliver a station at Silvertown.
This session is about creating persuasive, compelling cases. Question, we heard earlier about the rethink on Network Rail's plans. What impact does the panel think that rethink has on, I suppose, the confidence that's in the supply chain for delivering these major projects? And I suppose to Alison, would an option of stopping at Old Oak Common really ease the political delivery of HS2 not going to Euston now?
Wait a minute. Answer the last bit first, then we're taking, because we haven't got time, but we've noted your question.
Well, in terms of stopping at Old Oak Common, all the analysis that we've done suggests that actually the majority of people actually want to get into central London. And so what we've tried to design is, by having a station at Old Oak Common and a station at Euston, that we're giving the maximum number of people the best possible journey. We talked earlier on about having the best end-to-end journey experience. That's what we've tried to do to get passengers to where they ultimately want to be. And that's why we need Euston.
We're building a north-south rail corridor. I'd just like to put an idea to the panel. Shouldn't we be building a multi-utility corridor underneath that at the same time in terms of added value and legacy to the country?
Underneath that, should we build a multi-directional? Yep. Utility corridor, yep.
I would say that if we are building, any high-speed rail lines we build should be built with ducts for all sorts of utilities in them to make them as useful as possible, clearly,
We're doing that. So.
It's being done? You'll be glad to know it's being done. Dan, very finally on that.
Sure. OK, Network Rail. Look, it's just a start. They've talked about breaking it up into sections, but I think you're going to have to go much, much bigger. I would like to see, in exchange for the debt being written off for Network Rail, then you auction, sell off, give away the track and stations to the train operating companies. And what you do is you recreate the vertically integrated monopolies that could be working under a 21st century regulator, very much like what existed in the 1930s when we had profitable railways. And on utility corridors, no, they were doing well. They were doing fine. The utility.
Yes, I like a rabble.
On utility corridors, as I understand.
OK, Pete Waterman says they went bankrupt.
Well,
right, we got it.
I will have to come back to you.
Right. Anyway, I'm afraid we're right out of time. Great session, but ladies and gentlemen, thank our audience, for our guests very much.